3 best social media strategies for a growing startup. In this presentation, we're going to talk about 3 of the best social media marketing strategies you can use to grow your startup. It's no secret that social media can be effective in growing your business. That's because you have the potential to get in front of a lot of people. You also have the opportunity to build your brand. You'll be doing this around a certain message. You're reaching out to a certain type of audience. Let's be real here. You're not going to appeal to everyone on social media. Yet, you will appeal to those who will apply to your message. It comes down to who you're targeting. Whether it's millennials, Gen Zers, or even the older generations, they have a preferred social media platform. For example, the millennials and Gen Zers will use Instagram or TikTok. The older generations will lean more towards Facebook or even Twitter. And that sets the stage for our strategy. Know who you're targeting. Almost everyone is connected to social media. However, you're not going to connect to everyone. As the old saying goes, you try to serve everyone, you get nothing. We mean you get no sales, no clients, no customers. So you need to whittle down who your target audience is. What is their gender, their age? Do they have kids, grandkids, and so on? There are so many different questions you can ask. The deeper you go, the better. This also applies to your market research. When posting on social media, you want your content to get people to feel understood. The more you understand them, the better they'll listen to you. Whatever you're offering for products or services, make sure you have the right offer in front of the right people. When that happens, people will buy it and use that product or service to solve their problem. If it changes their lives for the better, they will rave about it. They will thank you profusely. Don't forget, you're not just selling features and benefits, you're selling the long-lasting transformations. That segues into the second strategy we'll talk about. That's leveraging your customer or client success stories. Everyone loves a success story. It is so important that you ask or suggest to your customers and clients about leaving a testimonial. Have them tell a story of what they struggled with before using your product or service. Did they try something that failed before finding out about your startup? Then have them talk about how they discovered your product or service and how it's transformed their lives. The deeper they tell the story, the more it can relate to people. Stories like this are the perfect social proof for what you're selling. Finally, our third strategy is to use the ad platforms provided by the social media you're using. For example, if you're targeting younger people, you can use Instagram or even TikTok ads. Or if your target audience is in the B2B market, consider LinkedIn ads. The platform allows you to program ads for people who meet specific conditions, such as their age, gender, what accounts they follow, and so on. For example, if you set your ad for males 25 to 45 on Facebook, these groups of people on Facebook will be able to see that ad. Don't be afraid to test it out based on the demographics and psychographics of your target audience. We hope this presentation has been helpful. You can use these 3 social media strategies to grow your startup as soon as today. Thanks for watching and listening. Good luck, and here's to your sustained growth and success for your startup. 5 market research questions to ask before launching your startup. If you're planning on launching a startup, you need to take the necessary steps. One of them is doing market research. This presentation will go over 5 market research questions before you make the launch happen. It's always a good idea to gauge the market and see what you can get out of researching it. The deeper you go, the better. So now it's time to ask the vital questions that will make or break your startup. Let's dive right in and start now. The first question is, who is your target audience? You need to have a clear understanding of who they are. If you don't, it will be impossible to create products or services that meet their needs. Start by identifying who your ideal customers are by demographics. These include age, gender, location, and income, among others. You should also include psychographics, such as their interests, values, and behaviors. The deeper you go, the more information you'll have at your disposal. It will help pave the way for building your ideal buyer's persona. The second question is, who is your competition? This will give you a good idea of who they are. You will also need to know about their strengths and weaknesses. It would also help getting to know their pricing strategies and marketing tactics. The plan here is to identify the gaps they might have in the market. From there, you can fill those gaps and put yourself ahead of the competition. It's also a good idea to construct your unique value proposition. What is it that will set you apart from the competition? Like market research, doing competitor research will give you an advantage that will give you the leg up when launching. The third question to ask is what the industry trends are. Knowing the trends, innovations, and technological advancements of your industry will be key. This will help you identify what are considered opportunities and threats that may stand in your way. You'll want to stay up to date on several changes. This can include your customers' behavior, buying habits, and preferences. For example, the COVID-19 pandemic caused a major shift in consumer behavior. We're witnessing more people shopping online compared to going to brick-and-mortar stores. This can be huge for a startup that intends on running 100% digital. The fourth question is, what is the market size and potential? This will give you an idea of how much of the market share you stand to acquire. You may want to research the total addressable market, which includes the number of potential customers. From there, you can narrow it down to the serviceable addressable market, which is something you can realistically target. That's when you find out what market share you stand to capture along with the potential revenue you can get. Of course, you also need to know if there's a demand for the product or service. It should also help to determine if your idea is financially feasible. The last question is, how can you test your idea? You want to test the idea by performing certain tasks such as focus groups, surveys, and even interviewing potential customers. You will need to get their feedback, which will be monumental in your decision to go forward with the startup launch. A soft launch will be a great opportunity to test your product or service. That's because it's done in a controlled environment. Once you have enough data, that's when a decision needs to be made. We hope you enjoyed this presentation. Be sure to check out more on growing your startup soon. 5 questions to ask when interviewing potential startup employees. If you're hiring people to join your startup, you're faced with plenty of challenges. One of them is hiring the right person. At this point, you've got plenty of qualified candidates. The interview process can help you make a better decision on who to hire. You have people who are equally skilled and competent at the job opening you want to fill. Now it's time to ask what might be the tough questions. Let's continue on this presentation with 5 questions you'll need to ask right now. The first question is asking about their experience. You might have some information already handy regarding this. A startup and an established organization are completely different from each other. The work environment and the culture are also unique from one another. That's why you want employees who can thrive in the startup environment. Ask them questions such as whether they've worked at a startup before or not. There's a good chance that they will understand the level of autonomy that is required working in a startup environment. They might have skills such as resilience, problem solving, and adaptability. You can ask them challenging problem-solving questions that pertain to your startup or industry. This may be a question that the prospective candidate will answer with their ideas for solutions. It's up to you to determine if their solutions may be good enough to where they can be applied in a real-life situation, should any arise. The second question to ask is what skills they have that can be beneficial to your startup. This will help you understand the candidate's skills and how they can be an asset to your startup. It's also a good idea to talk about their strengths and weaknesses. You'll need to evaluate the candidate's response by focusing on the skills that are relevant to the role. For example, If you're hiring someone for marketing, see if they have the applicable skills. This can include SEO, email marketing, and social media marketing. The third question might separate the best possible candidate from the others. Ask them about a challenging situation they have faced and how they overcame it. In a startup environment, there are such situations that can arise. You'll need the right people to solve the problems. Getting them to tell stories about similar situations they face will give you a good idea of how they can solve the problems you may face. The fourth question to ask is, how do they stay up to date with the latest industry trends and advancements? It's important to have someone who knows what's going on. Furthermore, they need to know what they're talking about. The response to this question can make or break a candidate. If they answer the question with confidence and share with you information that they know, including latest trends, they could be the best fit for your startup. The final question to ask them: what their passion is outside of work. While this might be relevant to the role, it will help give you an idea of that candidate's personality, values, and interests. It may help to gauge whether or not they fit your startup's culture and values. A fit in these aspects is a huge plus. Finding a candidate that matches it all should be what you're looking for. If their values don't seem to align, this can hurt their chances of getting hired by your company. We hope these questions have been helpful. You can ask these as soon as the first interview you do for a new hire. Good luck and happy hiring! 5 strategies to hire new people to your startup. This presentation will go over the 5 strategies to hire new people to your startup. You might be at a point where you need extra hands on deck to grow. You might have the funds to pull it off. A startup can grow to new heights. It's a matter of time when that can happen. When it does, you know that you can't tackle everything alone. That's where hiring new people will come into play. Pay attention throughout this presentation and be sure to take notes. Now, let's dive into the list of strategies you can use right now. The first strategy tip is to define your ideal candidate. You'll need to know what qualities and skills they should have. Make a list of the skills, experience, education, and personality traits you look for. You know that not everyone will be a good fit for the position that you need to fulfill. Whatever those may be, you need to find one with the skills and know-how to perform the job well. Needless to say, you can't do everything all at once. That's why you need to be specific and thorough when it comes time to post the job opening on social media, on job boards, or elsewhere. This will weed out the unskilled and give you a pool of the qualified candidates that may fit your profile. Speaking of which, this segues into our next strategy. Using job posting platforms such as LinkedIn, Indeed, and Glassdoor will be your best friends. Of course, you probably shouldn't rule out social media either. If you have a hiring budget, you want to take advantage of it as much as possible. If you need to use a social media ad platform, LinkedIn may best serve you, especially if you're looking for candidates in a professional business-like setting. Facebook and Twitter may be a good idea as well to post your job openings. You can try and test different ads or post organically. It's important to know where your ideal candidates are. LinkedIn is usually the foolproof solution, so start off with that and consider expanding to other social media platforms in the not-so-distant future if you feel the need to fill up the pool even more. Next, we want you to leverage your network. Networking is always great for any business person. You might know someone who may know someone. In this context, the latter person may be looking for a job. It may be a good idea to tap into your existing network. Someone you know may be a point of contact for other people who may be looking for a job. It could be in the same field that you're in. Next, we have employee referrals. This may be a strategy that applies if you already have employees, but it will eventually come in handy. This can be useful when your employees have inside information on job openings. They might have someone in their network who may be interested in working for your startup. You can even incentivize employees. That employee will refer someone to apply for that job opening. If that person is hired, you can give your current employee a hire. This can include bonus pay or some other incentive. Finally, a recruiting agency can be your best option for hiring new people. It never hurts to let the professionals handle some of the heavy lifting of the process. That'll do it for this presentation. We hope you put these 5 strategies to good use. When it comes to hiring new people for your startup, it's about finding those with the right skills, knowledge, and mindset to help you achieve your business goals. In this presentation, we're going to go over 5 things to keep track of when growing a startup. It's always a good idea to watch the metrics that are vital for a business. The reason for this is that you'll need plenty of data to make critical decisions regarding your business. You might have plans to scale the startup later on. You might even try to figure out which products or services you're selling are worth keeping around or discontinuing. Let's get started with the following things to keep track of below. First up, we'll take a look at your finances. Financial management is the backbone of any business. For startups, it's critical to have. You need to understand what the financial situation is before making informed decisions. Keep track of your income, expenses, and profits. This will help you determine if the business is financially stable. Your startup should have a budget. You should keep within those limits and avoid overspending. It should also be important to watch your expenses. Unnecessary expenses can tank your finances. Make sure you have a plan in place for funding your startup, whether it's via investors, loans, or other sources. Make sure it's enough to keep it operational. Second, we have customer acquisition. Without customers, the startup won't get the income it needs. You need to know how to acquire new customers. How do you acquire new customers? Well, marketing is vital. You can do this through organic means such as social media. You can also use paid traffic such as ads. For new customers, you need to get the right offer in front of the right people. Research your market and find out who they are. See what their problems are and determine if your startup provides a solution for them. If they do, they can be a paying customer for you. Third, we'll take a look at product development. It's always a good idea to keep track of your product's development. This can include upgrading your current lineup and even creating new ones from the ground up. You have a team to keep track of as well. This includes their productivity, morale, and communication. You want to make sure everyone is on the same page and working together. It's also a good idea to keep track of the latest trends and technologies, especially when it comes to ideas for creating new products or services. Next is the team performance. As mentioned, keeping track of how they are performing is key. You want to communicate with them regularly. You want to see how things are progressing in each department, whether it's your product development team or customer service reps. It's good to connect with them from time to time. If they have a problem, you can find a solution. Another thing to check on is how well your team is doing in terms of productivity. If they're having issues meeting their goals, try to figure out where the problem lies and come up with a solution to improve the numbers. Lastly, the industry trends. These will change numerous times. Your startup will need to adapt to those changes in order for your business to thrive. These trend changes may also lead you to make critical changes. It may also lead to creating new products and services while discontinuing other ones. Stay close or even ahead of these trends as much as possible. We hope this list has been helpful. Be sure to keep track of these 5 things from the beginning of your startup and beyond. How to build a startup without spending a single dime on office space. This presentation will discuss how you can build a startup without spending a single dime on office space. We now live in an age where working remotely is possible. This was something that was bound to happen sooner or later. Yet the COVID-19 pandemic accelerated the timetable of when it was going to be implemented. But nevertheless, it gave us the biggest takeaway. it's possible to build a startup without spending a ridiculous amount of rent on office space. With the technological infrastructure we have, we can build a startup just about anywhere in the world. It can be at home or it can be poolside at a beach resort in the Bahamas. You could have Wi-Fi and a laptop, and that might be all you need. Let's take a look now at how you can build a startup without spending a single dime on office space. First, we take a look at working from home. You could use your kitchen table or a spare room as your office space. If you have the right technological devices and resources, you'll have a nice setup for your home office that will serve as the headquarters of your startup. Working from home will give you flexibility and cost savings. Even better, you save money that might go otherwise to commuting expenses such as gas or vehicle maintenance. Sure, working from home can have its challenges. You may have young children at home. Taking care of them is important, so it is important to choose a time where you might be less distracted from those duties. Another place to build your startup are co-working spaces. These are shared workspaces where you can rent on a short-term basis. This can allow people to work without the need for long-term office space. There's plenty of benefits to co-working spaces such as flexibility, cost savings, and networking opportunities. Plus, there are all kinds of amenities that you can take advantage of. If there's a co-working space near you, it may be worth using on a regular basis. Virtual offices are another place where you can build your startup. This will allow you to have a professional address and a phone number. You can also get access to meeting rooms and administrative support. This is also great if you want to meet clients and investors in a different location. Finally, you can rely on remote work in order to build your startup. As long as you have the appropriate equipment and resources, you should be good to go. The good news is that you can be able to work from anywhere. Wi-Fi will be one key component of building a startup remotely. The other can be a laptop. You may also use certain software to serve specific purposes. For example, they can hold virtual meetings with clients, investors, and anyone else using Zoom. There's bound to be software that can handle a critical need when you're working remotely. Spending money on office space doesn't have to be necessary. You'll need to spend it on the appropriate expenses that you need your startup to run. If you want office space for your startup, more power to you. However, you don't have to spend money every month on the space. You can work from home or any place else. Imagine the money you'll save running a startup without the use of an office space. That will be invested in improving your business or even scaling it from the highest level possible. Best wishes on building your startup now and in the future. How to build your startup while achieving the best work-life balance. This presentation will discuss building your startup while achieving the best work-life balance possible. Here's the thing. Running a startup is no easy task. The reason for this is that there are long hours and plenty of hard work involved. A healthy work-life balance will be beneficial for your mental health and overall well-being. Without this balance, your mental, physical, and emotional health can be affected negatively. Let's get started with the steps you can take right now. The first tip is that you need to prioritize your time. Time management is key when it comes to running a business. One of the things you need to do is prioritize your most critical tasks. You'll need to focus on the tasks that are the most important and most urgent. If there are tasks that are important but not urgent, worry about those later. For those urgent but not important tasks, you can find someone who can get the tasks done for you. This is also known as delegating tasks. You'll need to find someone who knows what to do. They need to be skilled and competent enough to perform these tasks. This will free up plenty of your time. You'll be able to use more of that time towards other tasks or whatever else you want to do. The next step is to take breaks. It's never a good idea to keep going without rest. The whole all gas, no brakes mentality is not what it's cracked up to be. You can take regular breaks in order to avoid burnout. It's also a good idea to practice regular mindfulness. This includes regular breathing exercises in a peaceful setting. You can spend a few minutes doing this every single day. When you do this, you'll be aware of what's going on. You'll also feel more in control of your stress. Stress is unavoidable, but it can be manageable. Regular mindfulness practice during your breaks will be important. You can also take walks, stretches, or even meditate. These are great to do when you're taking a break or even off times. No matter what time of day it is, do these activities to ensure that you keep your stress at bay. The next tip we'll provide is setting boundaries. This includes setting clean expectations of when you're going to be available to people and when you won't be. This will ensure that you do what you want at specific times of the day. Being too available can lead to burnout, so it's important to reserve certain times of the day where you are able to work, and other times of the day where you can be available for anything outside of the startup. Finally, learn the power of no. Saying no can be a challenge for most people. You can say no to working extra hours. You can say no to the tasks that won't give you a positive return on investment, be it money or time. If it's not a priority, you can say no to it and move forward with what really matters. When you master this power, life will be easier. It's easier for us to say no to the important things due to work. However, it's never the best option. Make a list of things that you should say no to. This includes non-urgent, non-important tasks such as getting sucked into social media during work hours. Do the unproductive things less, and you'll be able to focus more on building the business. So that covers everything you need to know about building your startup while getting the best work-life balance possible. Take good care of yourself, and be sure to follow these tips above. How to test your startup idea in 24 hours or less. In this presentation, we'll talk about how you can test your startup idea in 24 hours or less. It's always a good idea to test something before launching it to the general public. The market might just give you the validation you need to move it forward. We'll go over 5 ways you can test your startup idea. It's important that you follow these in order to determine if the idea is worth going forward. Let's get started right now. First, define what your startup idea is. What problems are you looking to solve? What solution will be used to address it? Going forward, you need to decide who your target market is. You also need to know what makes that solution unique to that market in particular. With that, we move on to the next step. The second step is performing your market research. It's always a good idea to know who your market is. What is their gender, age, behaviors? What social media platforms are they usually frequenting? The social media platforms where they hang out can be a gold mine for market research. You can pay attention to what they're commenting in groups. You can see what they might be tweeting. There's a lot you can do with market research. It's vital that you go as deep as possible. The deeper you go, the better you'll understand what they're going through. It will also further galvanize your message. You want people to feel understood by your content. It shouldn't take any more than a few hours to do this market research. Gather as much as you can about the problems they're dealing with. Don't forget to find out what their desires are. What are their dreams and goals? What are the obstacles standing in the way? You can categorize these things in a document. For example, if someone is describing a pain, make a note of it in a document. Make sure it's under the pain category. If someone is aiming for a certain desire, note it down in a section labeled desires or dreams or something similar. Get the idea? Now let's move on to the next step. The next step is creating a landing page. This doesn't have to be extravagant. It can be something that's clean and professional looking. It can be a website builder or program such as ClickFunnels. Whatever program you choose, you can build a landing page in a few hours or less. It's important to consider What to include in the landing page. It's important that you have the right offer in front of the right people. It can be a sample of a service or product you offer. Give them a taste of what a prospective client or customer will get if they become a recurring paying customer. A landing page won't be as effective if it doesn't get traffic. In order to get traffic to your site, you can post the link of the landing page on social media. Another way to do it is to use paid advertising. If you're using paid advertising, it can be a small budget like $5 to $10 a day. Last but not least, you can also send an email to your list or close contacts. Send them a link to your landing page. The final step is analyzing the results. The numbers will give you a good idea of where to go from there. Who took on the offer? Ask what their results were. If your sample audience gives you a positive report, then you know you have a startup idea that you can take further. That's it for this presentation. We hope you're able to apply everything you've learned from this. Good luck and enjoy the fruits of your successful startup. The pros and cons of running a startup by yourself. We live in an age where it's possible to run a business all by yourself. It's all thanks to the technology that exists. Can a startup be a one-person band? It can be if you make the right moves. However, there are advantages and disadvantages to running a startup on your own. Let's take a look at the pros, then the cons. Let's get started. Our first pro is that you have complete control. Imagine having 100% control over every aspect of your startup. This means you control your own schedule. You also make the decisions and set the course for the company. The only person affected by it is yourself. With no employees, you feel like there's no worrying about a decision you can make. The second pro is that you get to keep all the profits. This means you don't have to split the money with anyone else. Sure, you do need to pay on certain expenses, but still, you keep more money to operate the business, to keep for yourself. Why not enjoy the rewards, right? The third pro is that you have excellent flexibility. You can work from anywhere. You can work your own hours. This can be a huge plus if you have a family or even a full-time job. If you have flexibility in a startup, you'll be quite happy with running a setup on your own. The last pro we'll go over is faster decision-making. When faced with a decision regarding your business, you can make one quickly. You don't have to defer any decisions to other people who are part of your startup. Again, your decision will be quick to make. No need to ask other people for their input. The sooner you make the decision, the better. Now let's take a look at the cons of running a startup by yourself. First, we take a look at limited resources. Running a one-person startup will require you to use resources that will address your critical needs. You might have enough on hand. However, you might have a lack of funding, expertise, or even a large enough network. It may be hard to compete with your competitors or scale the business as a whole. A one-person startup can be scalable, but there's a potential ceiling compared to what other startups may have. The second will be loneliness. We get it. It might be tough working with other people, but for some, working by themselves can get a little lonely. That's because they might not have people available to bounce ideas off of or share the workload with. So it can lead to a lack of motivation or even burnout. The next con is skill set limitation. There's so much you can do running your startup on your own. This includes developing a product or service, marketing your startup, managing the financial aspect, and so on. It's important to plan and prioritize the critical needs of running a solo startup. Try not to stretch yourself too thin. If you need to outsource certain tasks, you can do that. Finally, the last con is the limited growth potential. As mentioned earlier, scaling can be a problem. There's a ceiling that may hinder the growth of your startup. Without other people on your team, the growth potential will be limited. Plus, you might not be able to take advantage of new opportunities or even expand quickly. So that covers it for our pros and cons for running a startup by yourself. We hope this presentation has been helpful. Thanks for listening and watching. Good luck in your startup endeavors. When is the best time to scale your startup? Your startup may be in the early stages. However, there might come a time when scaling it can be possible. This presentation will go over when the best time to do this is. It may be tough to decide when to scale your startup, or you might not be so sure if you have the resources to get it done. But not to worry. We're here to help you make an easy decision. It's always a good idea to look ahead before you make a move. Scaling your startup takes planning and making the right moves. So let's take a look at what you need to do in an effort to scale your startup. First, let's talk about whether you have achieved a product market fit. This is defined as finding a product your customer loves and having a willingness to pay for it. Knowing this will help you make a decision on when to scale it. If there is a product market fit, scaling is possible. Otherwise, not achieving this can harm your chances of scaling as opposed to helping it. If you haven't reached this stage yet, refine your products or services that you offer. It should also be important to perfect your market fit. Give it time to build and then revisit the idea of scaling. If your adjustments create a good product market fit, you might move forward with it. Next, you want to consider your team. Are they the right people who will support the growth of your business? Scaling will require a lot of resources. You need to know if you have the resources and the team that can handle the increased workload. It may be a good idea to hire new employees. Training existing employees and even outsourcing certain tasks are things that should also be considered. Another step to take is whether you have the financial stability. Does your business have enough cash flow that can help support the growth? Aside from resources, it takes money to help you grow the expansion plans of your business. You might be in good enough financial standing to seek funding from investors. You may also consider taking out a loan as well. Make sure what you have in your coffers before making what can be a major move for your business. Next, we need to gauge the competition. This comes down to the market. If your market is crowded and plenty of established players, scaling can be a challenge, especially in your efforts for capturing a larger market share. If the market is less crowded and you have less competitors, then your scaling efforts will be a lot easier. Plus, you'll have an increased chance at gaining plenty of market share. Timing is also an asset you need to have when it comes to scaling. You want to find the right time to scale. If you do it too early, the increased demand will happen all of a sudden, and your current team will feel overwhelmed. That's why it is important to review your necessary business metrics. The time will vary on several factors, just like the ones we've mentioned. If you have enough money, resources, and manpower, scaling the startup now will be the best time. Don't be afraid to make a move, but make sure you have enough to do that. You should scale the business gradually and in phases. It's good to let your current team know of your plans. Let them know that there may be changes, including new hires, new products or services, or anything that pertains to your scaling plans.